Hello, bonjour, aheo, akwaba. Welcome. You are listening to the Liberated Self podcast with your host, Olivia Atsa. I hope you are all doing well. It's been a while. I realized that we are at the end of October and I haven't published a new episode yet. And today felt more like the inspiration for it. So today I really wanted to show up spontaneously, because usually I will try to write a little bit of what I want to talk about before I dive into the topic, so I don't get lost into my thought. Trust me, I can think about a million things at the same time. And I can take you in all different places. So really, me writing a little bit of the episode before I jump on here and record is definitely helpful for my overthinking brain, and also about the fact that I am a storyteller and I can get lost in the stories. Sometimes I have to remember that I have to stay on track. So an episode doesn't have to be like an hour, and realize that maybe this could have been delivered in 30 minutes. Who knows? But anyway, thank you for being here. If I haven't said that earlier, thank you for listening to this podcast. I know I'm not consistent and I'm still finding my way around here. It's been an interesting journey so far. As a new podcaster, it's not always easy to show up. Not because I don't have anything to share, believe me. I have so much that I can talk about. But there's also a part of me that is a perfectionist. So sometimes I can think about a topic and I'll get stuck in my head thinking about the perfect way that I can deliver this message so you can understand what I'm trying to convey and what I'm actually feeling in the moment as I'm recording this episode. But I'm still here, which is a good thing. I'm trying to be here at least once a month, and hopefully over time I get to do twice a month like I always wanted to. So yeah, thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for being here during my humble beginnings. Thank you for giving me the courage to continue recording and realizing that whatever I have to share is important. Even if it's just one person, I know there's at least someone out there who would listen to it and who could benefit from my story and also my experiences and hopefully other people's experiences. So today I have a question for you. Do you feel like you've abandoned yourself in order to belong, to receive love, and to be accepted? Or do you feel like you've ever had to abandon yourself in order to, again, belong, be accepted, and feel love and receive love? It's been a question on my mind because I've been a little bit more active on Instagram recently. I've joined the 28-day challenge, and the challenge is about us showing up authentically as ourselves for 28 days. I've joined a group of other beautiful women. The challenge is called Messengers. Joining Messengers for me was really to challenge myself. I needed to be able to get out of my own way. I needed to be able to show up for myself fully because I've never done that before. I knew I was so afraid of showing my face on Instagram or social media platforms that I needed to do that. That is the edge that I needed to meet in order for me to meet another version of myself. And I'm still going through it, but I've already seen the beautiful results that are happening. Even me being here right now, recording spontaneously, I'm less afraid, which is great. And I'm really proud of myself. I've been showing up every single day with what was on my mind and in my heart. I don't pre-record anything. I don't try to write anything in advance. I sit with myself and I spend time with how I'm feeling and what's showing up for me. Either I make posts or I do a video. And I've been trying to challenge myself by making more videos. I think I've had this Instagram page for the last at least 2 years. And I was used to share my writings, my poetry, but I wasn't really showing my face. So I really wanted to show up differently on that page. And I'm glad I did join that challenge. For the past 2 to 3 days, I've been talking about the link between emotional health and body disconnection and dissociation. I really wanted to explore that topic because it's been a huge learning curve for me. It's also been a huge theme in my life over the years, especially the past few years when I started my healing journey, when I started to dig deeper into my story and all the physical pain and also chronic issues that I was experiencing. And not that I didn't go to the hospital to double, triple check. Trust me, I did. And that's not something I ever want to miss. But two truths can exist at the same time. So you can still go to the hospital, you can still look for help, and then you are still met with the same issues over and over again. In one of the stories that I shared on my Instagram post was about the fact that I remember very clearly in South Africa, I had been going to the hospital quite often. And at this point, my family was also helping me a lot into trying to figure out what was happening with me. And I remember very specifically, we had that one family doctor who we used to see very often, and we also loved him. And one day he sat me down with my mother and he handed us like a psychologist card, and he said, I think you may also need to see a psychologist because there might be something deeper happening here. Obviously, he's a doctor. We listened to him. We booked an appointment and I went. I remember maybe the first or the second appointment with the psychologist, she clearly told me, which I will never forget. She said, you need to speak up to save your life. I don't think I fully understood what she meant at that time specifically. And well, I saw her and I worked with her for a few years. But I think it finally clicked when I moved to Canada a few years ago. And I started digging deeper and understanding a little bit more myself, my body, because I was still struggling with a lot of things. I just couldn't necessarily put words to what I was experiencing. And at that time, luckily, I met some amazing body workers and women healers. And I was able to work with them and cover a lot of my story and a lot of the things that were happening beneath the surface. I had done talk therapy for a few years, and it did serve its purpose. And I'm grateful I was able to experience that. But it wasn't until I experienced somatic therapy that actually things started to unlock for me and I started to move through everything I was experiencing. I think in my previous episode, I also mentioned certain books like The Body Keeps the Score that allows you to understand a little bit more about the connection between the physical health and your mental health, like your overall health. I know it's called holistic health. Going through that journey of experiencing different healing modalities, also experiencing somatic therapy, I have learned a lot about my body, especially how I have abandoned myself for many years in order for me to belong, to feel loved, to feel accepted. I had numbed so much within my body that it was very hard for me to experience certain emotions. I can think clearly about, for example, anger, which I thought for a very long time that was wrong for me to express and even feel, right? Over time, that anger turned into sadness or grief. So I wouldn't even know what's the difference, especially if I'm feeling some grief. Is it anger or is it grief? I don't know. So there are certain emotions that I really was numb to because either I was just too afraid to experience it or I felt that they were just bad emotion to feel. I was really disconnected from my body, and those physical pain and chronic issues that I was experiencing were a result of that. It didn't make it easy that I was sick quite a bit, and I wouldn't even know or understand myself what was going on. I remember I used to tell myself a lot, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? It felt like As soon as I was fine, if let's say I'm feeling some pain, I'm just giving like a random example here. If I'm feeling some pain in the right side of my body and then I treat it and I feel fine, a few weeks later or so, I'll experience pain somewhere else. It felt like I was in a loop and my body was experiencing pain all the time. It was trying to get my attention because, trust me, I did not want to be in this body for a very long time. I just really had a hard time. I was always finding something wrong with my body, wanting to fix it, to change it. And I don't usually use that word self-hate, but in that case, that was very true. The self-hate was real and it was intense. And the self-hate, or the fact that I was really uncomfortable in my body, didn't start out of nowhere. There were two things at play here. First of all, I was a skinny little girl, which is very difficult growing up in an African culture or in Cote d'Ivoire, because I don't want to generalize, might not be the same everywhere. The continent is quite large. So yeah, it was kind of difficult to be skinny and grow up there. So I had to deal with that while also realizing very early on that me being this emotional wasn't safe necessarily. Not that I would be harmed, but I felt like it wasn't safe to 100% feel and express my emotions, because maybe at that time my caregivers didn't have the capacity to quote unquote handle me. I know the self-abandonment really stems from the fact that emotionally I couldn't be me and I needed to find ways to cope, to adapt. I needed to find ways to belong and to make sure that I am loved and accepted and I can show up as people around me want me to, right? Even if it's not necessarily how I would have wanted to show up in the first place. I now know that I have abandoned myself very early on. I just couldn't explain it. I wasn't able to really even understand it myself at the time because I was young. And it's been a journey. I've had to learn to recognize how self-abandonment manifests into my life these days, because I've had the opportunity to work through it over the years, especially the last 5 years. And now I understand a lot better. I understand my body a lot more. I can work with my body, with my emotions. I mean, whatever I didn't have access to in the past, I now have access to it. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful for that. So all those symptoms that I used to experience in the past, they show a lot less now. And when they do, I know I have the capacity to address it. I know I have the capacity to transmute, to transform, to even feel it and experience it in the first place and know that I'm going to be okay, right? Now I can feel anger. I can express anger, grief. And it's not like in the past where I feel like I'm in an endless loop where I can't get out of it. Now I can. Also now I know that I don't need to abandon myself anymore in order to be loved, to be accepted, and to belong. There's nothing more beautiful than showing up as yourself. It might sound cliche, but it's true. And sometimes self-abandonment can be really subtle, especially when you started doing it when you were younger. If you answer that question for yourself, again, do you feel you've abandoned who you truly are to belong, be accepted, and receive love? If it's a yes, I can't really tell you for sure what it looks like for you personally, and that would have to be something you would have to explore for yourself. But I can give a few things, like for example, how it showed up for me and how I was able to recognize that indeed I did abandon myself. For example, it showed up in my people-pleasing patterns. It showed up in me not even knowing what my yes and my no is, not trusting my decision-making process, and not having healthy boundaries, thinking that I need to be a martyr and I need to just be there for everyone but myself. Very clearly in relationship, it would show up as me overdoing, oversharing, I don't know if it's a word, but over being, right? You do so much more because you are afraid of being rejected, being left, or not receiving the love that you secretly crave for. You don't really admit to yourself that you are seeking love. You don't even realize that when you start overgiving, for example, because you are so afraid of being abandoned. So you actually abandon yourself before someone else abandons you, because you want that love, you want that presence, you want to belong, you want to be accepted, right? You also start performing and pretending a lot. I even remember one of the poems that I wrote when I started being a little bit more vocal about my journey, and I was part of a beautiful woman circle at the time. One of my first writing that I shared openly with other women, again, who were part of the circle, was about pretending, and the title was Pretending to Be. I will never forget that poem because it kind of gave me a bit of freedom to put into words what I was actually feeling and what I had been feeling all these years. So we don't always have the language for how we feel. And I'm hoping that the more I share here, maybe it can awaken something for you. And if you can recognize yourself or recognize some of the patterns that I mentioned earlier, I would just get curious. What really shows up for you when you ask yourself that question? I'm very curious. I know I don't get to hear you guys, but I'm just very curious because I've been sitting with that question for a few days now, and things have been showing up a lot more than I expected. And they're not necessarily bad. They are making me reflect and analyze. And I do that a lot, maybe a little too much at times, but anyway. And actually, I would like to close off this episode by sharing the writing that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. And here it goes. For a long time, I pretended. I pretended so people wouldn't worry about me. I pretended so I would not be a burden. I felt bad for feeling sad, angry, or depressed sometimes. I pretended I did not need help. I never asked for help. I lied about how I truly felt. I pretended I wasn't hurt, bruised, broken. I put on a smile because that's what good girls do. I had to be strong for Mom. I didn't even realize when I got to the point where my life wasn't mine anymore. Performing as someone else, I pretended everything was okay. I pushed through. I shoved it all down and buried deep. No wonder for a long time I have dreamed of a dark hole I was always falling into. Endlessly, I pushed through for others. I pretended I did not exist anymore. I pretended I didn't feel alone. I lived for others, if not for their approval. I would carry the burden for them. I would do anything so they would not feel pain. I knew what pain felt like. What's wrong about adding more to my plate so they would be spared? I was already in so deep. I pretended that at least the one thing I'm good at least one thing they could be proud of. Maybe then I would be loved and accepted exactly as I was. I got very good at pretending I'm okay, shutting my body down and putting everyone else first, pushing through the pain, pretending it does not exist, saying to everyone else, I'm here. What do you need? I taught myself not to be as important, not to be me, pretending and dying in the process. Thank you for hanging out with me today. And I hope that this spontaneous episode spoke to you in some way. It really felt good to just jump in here and just record it and talk to you in this way. I'm looking forward to doing more of that, and I hope you do appreciate it. And if you have any feedback, please feel free to share it with me. I would love to hear from you. As always, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for your presence, your open heart, and your listening ear. Midday Munasi. Until next time, all my love.